The ins and outs of property ownership in Oklahoma can be pretty complex. And when you throw in oil and natural gas management, it doesn't get any simpler. But all of this doesn't have to be confusing. Today we're going to break down what it means to own property and the rights, terms, and legalities associated with home ownership and ownership transfer. We'll also learn exactly how to describe where a piece of property is located. So let's dive in. First, we'll meet Stephen. Stephen owns a piece of property in Oklahoma which he has inherited from his parents. His parents also left him Reggie, the pug. Stephen has fee ownership of this property, meaning he owns the rights to the surface of the land. You should become familiar with these terms if you're going to successfully navigate a lease. So let's take a look. The parties involved are called the lessor and the lessee. Can you guess which is which? Well, in our example, Sarah's company, Blue Sky Oil, is the lessee, the party receiving the lease. And the parties involved that are granting temporary rights to the land are the lessors. Dates are important when it comes to leases, and there are a few date-related terms that you should be aware of. The first term we will talk about is the effective date. The effective date is when the primary term of the lease actually begins, even if the lease is signed months in advance. Speaking of signing, that date has a clever name too. It's called the signature date. I would like to acknowledge that unfortunately none of these dates involve getting dressed up and going to a fancy restaurant with that special someone. Let's talk about a few additional terms you're likely to come across. Bonus consideration is an upfront payment made to the landowner upon signing, and it's usually based on acreage. You get the bonus consideration payments during the primary term, which is stated in the lease. This is the length of time the leaseholder has to establish production on the land. If they haven't started production by the time the primary term ends, the lease will expire. The primary term can be cut short if the leaseholder surrenders the lease or fails to properly pay delay rentals. If the property is productive at the end of the primary term, it is considered held by production, and the secondary term will commence and will extend the lease through the production. Speaking of production, when production occurs, royalty payments will begin, which is the leaseholder's share of the production profits. But how will they know where to deliver equipment? How about where to build roads? Well, in order to avoid confusion and upset landowners, the legal description of the property must be included in the lease. And speaking of landowners, in a case like this, where the people who own the land are different than the people who own the minerals, a separate agreement must be drawn up for the landowner. Now, let's talk money. Ebony Cooksey, 5'9", DMG Modeling Agency, Dallas, Texas.